I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego police recruiters have a big job ahead of them, hiring 700 new officers over the next 5 years.
And I'm Peggy Pico with San Diego Congresswoman Susan Davis on how to reduce college sexual assaults and her other priorities in 2015.
And how do you know when it's officially winter in San Diego? Just ask a surfer. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. County Health Department is reporting a record number of whooping cough cases this year, and most of the patients were vaccinated. More than 1,800 people have been diagnosed with whooping cough this year, a higher number than the last record year in 2010. Nearly 86% of the patients were properly vaccinated, but researchers say the vaccine used today is not as effective as the one used almost 20 years ago. The old vaccine was discontinued because of side effects. As the number of San Diego police officers continues to dwindle, the city and police union are working to keep more cops on staff. KPBS Metro reporter Taryn Mento tells us how negotiations are going and why the city's firefighters are paying close attention.
At an event this fall, San Diego Police Department's Troy White worked to recruit new officers with the promise of a short waiting period.
Jump on the internet, sign up, put in. No, we're hiring 700 right now over the next 5 years.
At the same event, San Diego County Sheriff's Department's Daniel Wilson tried to woo potential recruits a little bit differently.
You can see very competitive pay.
The recruiters' approaches represent the struggle the San Diego Police Department has endured for years. Too many vacancies it can't fill because better pay elsewhere lures officers away. San Diego Police Officers Association President Brian Marvel has said the staffing shortage has changed how the officers police the city.
A lot of the stuff that we did in 2000, late 1990s, we're not doing now.
Marvel says he used to have the staff to support a community policing approach, like helping a hoarder clean up their North Park home, but not with today's staffing levels.
Now we're sort of working on a skeleton crew.
Last month, the city agreed after a report showed San Diego cops make far less money than other agencies in the state, including the county sheriff's department. The city opened the police union's contract early for negotiations. Marvel and Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman had hoped for a deal by this month, but the talks will stretch into the new year. Still, Mayor Kevin Faulconer told KPBS recently that he's committed to finding a way to give cops more money in their pockets.
We're going to pay our officers more, and that's, I can't put it any more simply.
Alan Arrolado, president of the San Diego Firefighters Union, says the problem isn't limited to the police department.
The whole city is understaffed and is struggling with staffing issues,
including the fire department.
San Diego firefighters are at the bottom of the pay list, or near the bottom of the pay list.
Arrolado says he's keeping an eye on negotiations with the police officers to see what kind of position the city takes, but his union can't open its contract for renegotiation until January 2016. He hopes for sooner, but he's not optimistic. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
As the year draws to a close, KPBS has invited all 5 of our congressional representatives to join us while they're home from Washington for the holidays. Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter and Darrell Issa turned us down, but Democrat Susan Davis accepted our invitation to talk with Peggy Pico.
Representing the 53rd District, Congresswoman Susan Davis, welcome to Evening Edition.
Hi, Peggy. Nice to be with you.
Good to see you again. Now, the House and Senate passed the government spending bill this month. What does that actually mean to San Diego? How do we benefit?
Well, the first thing is that it keeps the economy going. And it's so important that businesses, I think, and that government generally has some certainty that we're going to move forward. Specifically for San Diego, we saw the funding of the port of entry, the final piece to that, which will mean that people can come and go across the border, more law enforcement, more border control there, but at the same time moving traffic, whether it's pedestrian traffic now or cars.
So we can
going back
finish
and
up
forth.
that project at San Isidro.
Finishing that is going to be a very big deal, and I've had a chance to visit with that project as it moves forward, and that's going to make a difference for a lot of jobs in the community.
Now, in the coming year, you're also seeking increase of NIH funding. How much money are you trying to increase it to, and how will that benefit San Diegans?
The NIH funding is very important to San Diego because we do very well with it, because we have the talent, we have the businesses, we have the research here, the universities that make very good use of those dollars. The budget actually did increase NIH funding, not as much as I would have liked. I led that effort and I wanted to see more, but nevertheless, it takes us from where we were and moves us forward. We could have really gone back if we had not passed this budget bill in a timely fashion and been going with these kind of fits and starts in terms of continuing resolutions. That was a big deal.
Other things that are happening here in San Diego, here at the San Diego State campus, the number of reported sexual assault cases are on the rise, as it is in other colleges across the country. You've introduced legislation to address this issue. Tell us about that.
Well, I've taken along with Senator Boxer what I learned from working with the military, and we still have a lot of work to do in that area, but there was a special, what we call a special victims counsel, an advocate for the victim to help him or her through that horrible ordeal and helping them to know what their options were, what the choices are in terms of that case moving forward. And what we said in this legislation is that if you take federal dollars, then you have to have a special victims counsel. You must have an advocate at that school or the university. There are a number of schools who do that on their own, but we wanted to be sure that that was pretty much universal for all schools that use federal dollars.
A lot was left undone by Congress this year. What are a couple of accomplishments that you're especially proud of?
Well, I'm really glad that we finally named the courthouse, so that's a very good thing. We had that naming bill. I started it and then handed it off to Congressman Peters because it was in the downtown area.
Remind people of the name.
Yeah, the name
finally
is,
we've settled on.
It will be what we I think people will call it the Carter Keep courthouse, but it's James Carter and Judith Keep courthouse building. And to that, we added a recognition for also the work of John Rhodes, who is now being named for the entire center.
Let's talk about immigration reform. Do you think Congress in the coming year or the next couple of years will pass an immigration reform bill?
I certainly hope so. I think we could have passed it this year. The Senate had a bill. If the Speaker would have been willing to bring it to the floor, as many of his colleagues would have liked, then we would do as we have just done. It probably would have been a reversal maybe of the budget, but I know that all the folks pretty much on the Democratic side have been for it. And we didn't need the full range of votes from the other side, but we felt that they were there. Many people had been talking about that, and colleagues had coming to me personally and saying they wish it would get on the floor. So I think we could have done that. I think considering the dollars that were there for border enforcement and all the other pieces, we should have done that. But I'm hopeful that we'll move forward. I know that we're going to have an awful lot of people weighing in against the president's actions.
Sure.
But it's best for our economy, and that's something that we've tried to make that point time and time again.
Let's move forward and have to wrap on this. What is your top priority for 2015?
Well, I would love to see us continue with the port of entry because I think that's so important to San Diego. I want to see more infrastructure and transportation, not just the funding, but the planning for. I think we have to be strategic about that, and we need to move forward. On a personal level, I've been carrying a bill for early childhood education that would benefit not just families who aren't able to afford preschool at all, but for an upper range of families who would. It means such a difference to them if they really had a little bit more discretionary funding, and early childhood education is so critical. So I would love to see some of that.
All right, and we'll have you back later on to talk more about that. Congresswoman Susan Davis, thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here, Peggy. Thank you.
San Diego researchers say they found health benefits to drinking small amounts of red wine. Previous studies found benefits to mice given large amounts of one ingredient in red wine. It's called resveratrol, and it's been linked to longevity and preventing diabetes. Scientists at Scripps Research Institute tried smaller doses and found they also help. New rules for driverless cars have been put on hold. Department of Motor Vehicles here in California was under a deadline to make rules for car makers, but now it's holding off because regulators first have to figure out how they'll know whether driverless cars are safe. The DMV says they won't let the public get self-driving cars until someone can certify that they don't pose an undue risk. San Diego won a $500 million grant from the state to help curb greenhouse gas emissions. The money is funding the county's new waterfront park charging stations for electric vehicles, or EVs.
Just in time for the holidays, San Diego's 12,000 electric vehicle owners can plug in and charge for free this week. County officials cutting the ribbon on several new charging stations located in their underground parking garage. Like gas stations in the early days, the more you have, the greater confidence drivers feel in taking longer trips.
That's why the specific county facilities were selected to get over, to remove that anxiety about, gee, I'm low on electricity, what am I going to do? And I know that feeling from having experienced it when there were no charging stations around.
And when we went from the horse to the car, one of the things was, how are these cars going to run if we don't have gas stations everywhere? And it was a transformational thing. Here in California, we've got goals. Our goal is we want to have at least 1 million of these chargers around for a projection of 1.5 million cars.
With almost 18 different models of EVs available, more charging stations are critical to keeping up with demand. ChargePoint is one of the world's largest charging networks. They install the stations and will operate them for 5 years, with plans to expand into 10 other county parking facilities by the end of 2015.
The more infrastructure, the more confident that you're out to go and find charging places where you work, where you shop, and at your home to really make the entire experience an easy and seamless transition for fueling.
Experts say charging electric vehicles are about 4 to 8 times cheaper than gas, and you can travel up to 20 miles on a 1-hour charge. San Diego State and Naval Academy face off in the 10th annual Poinsettia Bowl tomorrow night at Qualcomm. Today, the coaches spoke to the media, giving glowing reviews of their opponents. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler joins us from the newsroom with the story.
Teams have met in the Poinsettia Bowl. Back in 2010, the Aztecs beat Navy 35-14, but both sides say this isn't a grudge match, and both coaches spoke with a lot of respect about their opponents. Aztec coach Rocky Long says Navy offense is the cream of the crop.
And the way they run it is a little old school, but the way they run it is the best offense that's ever been designed.
But Navy coach says the more his team studies the Aztec offense, the more they worry.
Very quickly, as soon as our guys would go, especially us on offense, because we were very familiar with Coach Long and his defense, we were like, crap.
The Aztecs say they respect Navy on and off the field, but they're not going to let that get in the way tomorrow night.
Now, I think our players are excited about playing, but at the same time, we have the kind of respect for what he does and his team does and what they stand for. That, don't get me wrong, we're going to go out there and try to beat them up.
Both coaches promise this game will be great, traditional, aggressive football. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Having a family member in the hospital can be scary and stressful. Mix in the holidays and you have a perfect recipe for tough times. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg checks in with folks who will be spending Christmas in the hospital.
She was so small when she was born. She's huge now.
Anna Perez got an early Christmas present this year, her daughter Karina. The baby wasn't due until late January, but she was born on October 24th. Karina's been in the neonatal intensive care unit at UC San Diego Medical Center in Hillcrest ever since.
Here she was born 12 weeks early, so there were a lot of complications that could have happened that didn't happen, so that was really good and hopeful. But overall, she's doing really well.
Perez comes to the neonatal intensive care unit, or NICU, every morning after she drops her 3-year-old son off at preschool. At the end of the day, her husband takes her place. Perez says the holidays feel more stressful than usual.
It's a little strange, honestly, because you kind of, you want to get ready for the holidays, especially with a 3-year-old. You want to get excited and kind of prepare, but it's hard because we're essentially splitting our time between, our family and then our family here at UCSD.
Like other parents with babies in the NICU, Perez couldn't take her daughter to visit Santa, so UCSD brought Santa to the unit. Nurse manager Jan Hebert says he took a picture with every family.
It brings a smile to everybody's face. They were so excited to have that little bit of normalcy in their life, and very often it's like their first family photo with Santa, or their first kind of Christmas celebration for that family, so it's fun.
Hebert says staff do what they can to help families get through the holiday season.
This is a stressful place anyway, and then when you add the stress of holidays on top of that, I think we try and have them feel as much a part of our UCSD NICU family as possible their whole stay, but it's especially important during the holidays.
Of course, this time of year can be stressful for hospital staff too. That's why at UCSD they take turns working on Christmas Day. And to make things a little more festive, the hospital brings in a feast for people who have to work during the holidays.
Good morning. Hey, how are things going in the unit today?
And then there's UCSD chaplain Mark Reeves. His primary job is to attend to the spiritual and emotional needs of both patients and staff. Reeves says he also offers support to the patient's family members who live out of town.
Sometimes they can't be here. They have other things to attend to. Maybe they don't have the resources or the finances to be able to fly in to be with their loved ones during the holiday. We want to assure them that someone is always standing in the gap.
The response Reeves gets from patients gives truth to the old saying that it's better to give than receive.
They're so grateful, and they're so overwhelmingly grateful, and they often say, thank you for taking the time to come. It's like, no, thank you for inviting me to come, because during the holidays we would have it no other way, and we would have it no other way every day.
As people who work in hospitals will tell you, illnesses don't take a holiday. UCSD expects to have some 300 patients to take care of on Christmas Day. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Videographer Christopher Maui helped produce that story.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, how our modern-day oral history of America is growing. From the founder of the StoryCorps Project, as heard on NPR. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
May not be a surprise, today is the busiest day of the year for UPS as drivers deliver more than 34 million packages, many from online retailers. But even in the Amazon era, some brick-and-mortar booksellers are thriving. Amitha Sharma gives us a look at a local example.
It may be a trend that defies all predictions, but indie bookstores are making a comeback. The number of independent bookstores has increased nationally more than 20% since the recession in 2009, according to the American Booksellers Association. Joining me to talk about the revival is Mary Elizabeth Hart, co-owner of Mysterious Galaxy, which itself is undergoing an expansion. Mysterious Galaxy opened 22 years ago. Since then, major chains have gone bankrupt. They've downsized. People now order their books online. They read them on their tablets. Yet Mysterious Galaxy has not just managed to stay open, but it's expanding. Why? How have they been able to do that?
A combination of things. You can order books from us online on our website. You can download electronic books from our website. We are keeping up with technology. In fact, with our science fiction audience in particular, that's been very important because they are often embracers early embracers of technology. But part of what we've done is continue to bring an experience that you can't get from an algorithm, a way to discover more books by interacting with actual human beings who are passionate about the same kinds of books you're passionate about. In this case, genre fiction, mystery, science fiction, fantasy, and suspense. And by connecting readers and authors. Our author events are a huge part of our business, and we have people coming now who came when we had, David Brin and Ray Bradbury and Robert Price come to the store in May 1993.
So there's a lot of interaction between authors of books, and there's a lot of interaction between the people who work at the bookstore and the customers.
Absolutely. We are passionate about the types of books that we have. We believe in curation. We believe in helping people, especially as technology has broadened the number of titles available out there, to find those titles that really are going to be meaningful and special to them. To have someone who comes in the store and says, I've read Patrick Rothfuss, and gosh, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was a new Patrick Rothfuss book out, but there's not. What can you help me find? And to be able to say, well, let us guide you to Scott Lynch or Elizabeth Bear or someone else.
So you've recently moved your store and have enlarged it. Why?
Because we have been very fortunate to have our community support us and to attend author events, and we are delighted to have so many of those wonderful titles out there, and we just outgrew our space. We had been in a space for 14 years that just couldn't hold our books or our customers anymore. We needed more space.
Now, the number of indie bookstores is on the rise nationally. Why do you think there's a revival underway?
Because we're awesome at being able to be adaptive and being able to be connected as a community of booksellers. Booksellers are smart people, and they're also people who know the importance of our product. This isn't widgets. This isn't, you know, not to speak ill of hardware stores, but it's not a screw is a screw is a screw. This is literature. This is content. This is important to our nation and to our world's culture.
So you say that indie bookstores are adaptive. How has the indie bookstores business model evolved over the years?
I think the main way that it's evolved has been maybe back in like the 70s or 80s, there was a little bit of a if you build it, they will come culture. You could be a book lover and open a bookstore, and I don't think that that's necessarily the case anymore. I think you have to be a business person as well as a book lover.
And how has the resurgence, if you will, of the indie bookstore affected major bookstore chains?
I think it's helped us partner against you know, the possibility of a common enemy, and at the end of the day, we have far more in common with Barnes & Noble or Hastings
Who's
than
the
we
common
do.
enemy?
Oh, you're not going to make me say Amazon, are you? They're just mean. They're a big, mean internet bully, and they claim that they're working for the benefit of the customer, but they're not. They're working for market share, and that is all that lies at the heart of their cold little grinchy hearts.
And how do you think customers perceive Amazon? Is anyone coming around to that perspective?
I think actually the recent, very public dispute between Amazon and Hachette Book Group helped enlighten a number of people. But at the end of the day, whether we're talking about Amazon or we're talking about a big box retailer or we're talking about any other resource, part of what I think people embrace is the concept of indies first. It's not indies only. I'm not a purist. I buy my books from independent booksellers, but I also buy them at Barnes & Noble. And I don't buy toilet paper from a tiny place, you know.
We're going to wrap it there. Mary Elizabeth Hart, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Santa Ana winds could blow into our valley and mountain areas tonight. There's also a possibility of some high surf along the coast. Temperatures will start cooling down there. They'll also drop by 10 degrees and more on Christmas Day. The mountains could also get wind gusts of up to 60 miles an hour tonight. As for the desert, temperatures 60s and 70s. Well, it is the first full day of winter, but San Diego doesn't have snow, sleet, or hail to mark the new season. KPBS's Nate John finds out how we know winter has arrived here.
A few weeks ago, KPBS sent out a non-scientific survey asking people in San Diego, how do you know it's winter? We got mixed answers, ranging from holiday celebrations to socks and sweaters. But some people just aren't sure. How do you know it's winter in San Diego?
I don't think you do, really.
I don't.
Because there's a little bit of chill in the air.
Grow my leg hair out.
Because it's 63. Isn't that awful?
But if you're a surfer, winter is seen in the swells.
There's often bigger storm waves. The wind's bigger in the winter. You know, stronger winds, stronger storms off sea. Get bigger waves. You tend to have changes in the topography of the beach because of the wave size.
That's Beth Slevkov. She's been surfing here at Tourmaline Beach for more than 20 years. Those big waves she was talking about come from the Northwest, from Alaska. But how big is big?
You know, 8 to 10, 10 to 12. I won't go out if it's 10 to 12. That's too big for me, and it's too big for me here. I usually won't make it past the whitewash if they're that big.
Beth says that's the highest she's seen the waves here at Tourmaline, 12 feet, what surfers call double overhead. When winter rolls in, Beth will alter her habits for the waves, one of San Diego's only real markers for the season.
It definitely gets colder, so like I'm wearing a thick suit. I'm pretty wimpy, so this is a 4-3, which is quite a thick suit. I change the surf wax I use because of the change in temperature. I need a softer wax when the water's colder.
So when winter is coming, break out the soft wax. For KPBS News, I'm Nate John.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.